me start the Facebook Live. We'll wait just a few more seconds before we begin, but good morning, everyone. And as I mentioned a moment ago, please keep your video turned off for the Zoom call. Thank you.
Good morning, Rabbi. It's Jeffrey. I just want to say good morning to Rachel.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Jeffrey. Thank you for making this happen.
Pleasure.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Sunday morning interviews from here at the Bayit. This is Rabbi Daniel Karapkin, and I'm here with our special guests, Mr. Eli Beer, the president of United Hatzalah, and joining Eli this morning is Rachel Har, the new Canadian director of United Hatzalah, who was able to help us coordinate this event this morning. And thank you very much. So first, we're going to introduce Mr. Eli Beer. Eli is a social entrepreneur and founder of United Hatzalah, Israel's preeminent rapid response community-based EMS network made up of over 6,000 volunteer medics who respond to more than 1,800 calls daily in under 3 minutes anywhere in Israel free of charge. United Hatzalah's signature ambucycles, these are motorcycles outfitted as ambulances. We're going to ask Eli to talk a little bit about that, are instantly recognized across the country, along with the medics often regarded as angels in orange who represent the diverse cultural and religious population of Israel. Over the past 25 years, the organization has grown significantly and includes a range of other emergency vehicles and unique programs that have secured United Hatzalah's reputation as global leader in medical innovation. So welcome, Eli Beer. It's an honor and a pleasure to be able to speak with you this morning using this wonderful technology. And also welcome to Rachel Har, who's actually not as far as Eli is, because she's right here in Toronto and is the new Canadian director who coordinated this visit today together with the president of our shul, Mr. Jeffrey Brown. So it's wonderful to welcome you both. And Eli, if we could, let's, first of all, the fact that United Hatzalah came to the attention of our community is not a surprise because of all the amazing work that you and your organization are doing in Israel. But in particular, I think that a lot of us heard about you in particular in United Hatzalah in relation to this latest pandemic, because I think it was in March you do a lot of traveling, Eli, especially to the U.S. And just at the cusp, but just at the beginning of the pandemic, you found yourself stuck in the U.S., if memory serves me correctly, sometime either at the end of February, beginning of March. And you were one of the first people that we knew who had contracted COVID. And it was very touch and go for a little while. Do you want to talk to us about that first?
Yeah, of course. So first of all, it's a great honor to be with you and with your congregation. In Hebrew, we say "Tov liot babayit." You know, it's good to be at home. So I know it's called bayit, so I'm really happy to be at home. And I just want to say that I travel a lot to Canada too. I was in Canada just before, a few weeks before, and I went to England. I went to APAC, of course. I think a lot of Canadians go to APAC as well. And everything was normal with me and everyone else. We knew about what's going on in China and Europe. We were getting prepared for it in Israel as well. It was a big scare for Israel because we have people coming from all around the world there. And when I got to Miami, this was in the beginning of March. I was like, everything was normal in Miami. Nothing looked like anything will happen to Miami. A lot of Canadians are here too. And we had Purim, and then a day after Purim, or 2 days after Purim, I didn't feel well. And then a few days later, I was like, okay, what's going on with me? I'm usually a healthy guy. I never been to I'm always into the hospital bringing people. I'm always a paramedic treating people, but never been as a patient. So I said, I'm not going to the hospital. I don't want to go to the hospital. Anyways, the hospitals weren't even ready for this. Most of the hospital didn't even have tests to test people. And after a few days in a quarantine, that I put myself in a quarantine because I didn't feel well. I had a fever and I had some weird feelings. I decided to go to the hospital, and they right away checked me, and they said, you're going into the ICU. Within 4 days in the ICU, which I thought I'm in a good, everything will be okay. I'll just walk out of the ICU. 4 days later, the doctor says to me, Eli, you can't breathe. And it's hard to explain to someone what does it mean you can't breathe? What does that mean? And I have the easiest explanation for that. I mean, every single one of you here has a phone. When you need to make a really important phone call, and exactly that time you need to make the phone call, you don't have reception. You're looking all over for reception. You're climbing the walls to get one bar of reception. That's how I felt when I was trying to breathe. I didn't have any reception for my oxygen. My lungs were shut. This disease, the COVID disease, attacked my heart, my lungs, and I couldn't breathe. And they said there was no other choice but induce you into coma, intubate you with a pipe into the lungs to put 100% oxygen in there. Because when we breathe 21% oxygen. In any case, they decided to put me in an oxygen machine on a ventilator, and I had to say goodbye to my family. I had to literally. This was Friday afternoon. I'm in Miami all alone. My family's in Israel, and I have to call home a few times, so they realize something is wrong. They answer the phone. I say, they're having Shabbat dinner, and I have to say goodbye to every single one of my children. It was the hardest moment of my life to a 12-year-old girl, Adina, and to my other kids, and they didn't know what it was then. Then it was like, okay, this is it. Everyone knew this is it. Like, I didn't have the doctors even told me the chances of 5% survival. And that's what happened to me in the beginning of March. So for almost 1 month, I was on a ventilator.
Wow. Did you have any, do you remember any experiences while you were out and on the ventilator?
I remember very well all the I don't know how to call them. It's like a 4D dream. It's like a real dream you live through. And I was dreaming about very scary disasters that I was in or I was never in, but we were busy working on big floodings, and this is for weeks going on. I was in a dream that every day thousands of people were dying near me, people that were drowning, and we were trying to help people. We sent 1,000 Hatzalah volunteers, United Hatzalah volunteers, to help out in Europe. And that's how I really woke up in the middle of that dream a month after I slipped in the water and I got hurt myself and I was hospitalized. So when the doctor asked me, do you know where you are? I said, yes. He said, where? And I said, I'm in the hospital. So he was happy. Thank God my brain is not damaged. So he says, you know which hospital? I said, yes, in Switzerland. And I told him the name of the hospital, which doesn't exist, but because I was in the hospital there. And he saw I was totally confused. He didn't know why I got to Switzerland. And I didn't believe I'm in Miami. It took me a long time to understand I am in Miami. It was a very hard landing.
Wow. Wow.
And I say this all the time because I know so many people are suffering around the world. And I talked about this and I wrote a lot of articles about ICU deliriums, which this is something people should know about because, people think, oh, you only have a medical, physical medical situation that you have to deal with, but the emotional situations when you wake up are even greater.
I'm curious, Eli, obviously you've been reunited with your family since then. What has changed in your life personally as a result of that experience? Because that must have transformed you in some way.
Well, a lot of things changed in my life. I saw how fragile, your life is. You could be the strongest person in the world, everything is fine, and all of a sudden in 1 second everything changes. And I didn't have any underlying before. I had no problem. I was 46 years old. So I realized that I really have to use my time very smartly. Like Hashem gives us the lungs to breathe in, and hopefully we could bring many, many years with it and have a heart and everything else. And even me, that I was working around the clock, I still had time. I didn't value the time as much as I do it now. And I value my time with my family. When I meet my family, I put time to be only with them. When I meet someone, I put time to meet with that person. So I decided not to do 4 things in one shot. Like some people, like they're busy in the meeting and they're talking on the phone and they're answering someone in the email or text message, or the same thing with your children. So I realized that coming back from almost being dead and not putting your time in good use. Even so, I did a lot of things, but I used to sometimes do 4 things in 1 minute. And then I decided I'm going to do 1 thing in 1 minute. Every time I do something, like if now I am here in this important meeting, I'm putting my whole, like nothing else is important than this meeting. And the same thing with my children. The same thing with my mother. My mother's 92 years old. When I'm with her, I put my phone away. I don't answer other phones. I used to answer. Honestly, I used to. But now I realize you could be in the middle of something and then everything could stop in a second. So let's use the time in the best way.
That's a very important message for all of us, because I think that in a certain way, especially when it comes to parents and children's relationships, we sometimes take our children for granted and we engage in other activities, and usually with our smartphone. Some of us when we're talking to our children, and I think it creates an insecurity, and it makes our children feel that they're not important, they're not important to us in our lives. So it's a very, very sobering message, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, well, listen, and the second thing, and one more thing I want to add for that, one thing I got out of the fact that I was in the hospital, waking up a month after with a diaper, in a diaper, needed help to do anything. I couldn't walk, I couldn't use the shower, I couldn't use the bathroom. I needed to get help from nurses that worked really hard. And I was embarrassed. I was the most embarrassing moments of my life, that moment. I had no family near me. I was only depending upon strangers who were coming and doing their job. And sometimes I was like, I didn't know what to do. I said, maybe I'll try handling things myself, but I couldn't. And when I started United Hatzalah, which I'll go into it, I always taught our volunteers of Hatzalah. We're volunteers. We don't get paid for this. So when you treat someone, treat them like they're your own parent, your own wife, or your own child, and put everything you could to make them feel comfortable. So when someone is on the floor, go down to the floor and be in their position, that they should see you in your level of your eyes. I remember I was once in Canada and I was in Toronto, and I was walking in one of the main streets there. I forgot the name of the street, and a truck hit a woman, a Chinese woman. I was with some friends in Toronto. So right away I stopped. I'm a medic from Israel, but I stopped, and this Chinese woman is on the floor. She didn't speak a word of English. And I went down to the floor and I was looking at her. She felt so comfortable, even though she didn't speak my language. And then eventually when the ambulance came, it took a while. They were standing there. I'm sure they were wonderful people, but they were standing. They didn't even bend down. They were just looking at us from the top. And I was like, I was down there and I was looking up at them. And I said, why aren't they coming down to the floor? Like I always say in Hatzalah, you should come down to the level. And I asked them that, and they said, no, we don't go down. It can hurt our back or whatever. I was in the hospital. I woke up and I was so embarrassed to get help by the nurses. And when they came to clean me up, I felt like these are angels and they're doing it. And I said to myself, when I got out of the hospital, I have to train the volunteers of Hatzalah, not only to go down to the level of their eyes, to go 2 centimeters lower, to make that 90-year-old lady who's getting your help, you're cleaning her up because she can't do it herself. That's how I felt. Make her feel more important than you are. So go down 2 centimeters lower than this woman when you treat her and when you take care of her, when you ask her questions, so she could feel a lot more comfortable and secure when
So
you're with
Ellie,
her.
what you're now suggesting is that this experience as a patient, as a completely helpless patient, has actually not only affected you and your relationships, but has also affected even United Hatzalah. Now, usually, when someone goes through a very traumatic experience, it's to sensitize them because previously they weren't sensitive. But you are a person who has devoted his life to helping save people's lives. But what we're hearing from you now is that even though you were a sensitized individual before and you devoted your life to chesed and helping save people's lives, this experience actually made you even more sensitive to the finer points, like the shifra and pua, like the very, very small little details of attending to a helpless patient's needs, which is a very, very powerful message. I want to use that as a segue to, maybe you could talk to us a little bit about the history of United Hatzalah. It's an organization that you started work on 25 years ago. Tell us how this started and what was it in your life that inspired you to begin this whole thing?
So I was inspired from when I was 6 years old, which is a lot longer than 25 years ago. I was a young boy growing up in Jerusalem in Beit Vegan. Beit Vegan is a small, mostly American community that had some Canadians and French, but it was a Chutzlaritz people that moved there. And when I was 6 years old, I was near a bus that blew up, a number 12 bus on a Friday afternoon. With a terrible tragedy. It was a terrorist attack. It was
What year was this?
1978. And many people were killed, and young kids were killed there too, and a lot of people injured. And I remember taxi drivers coming and picking up people and putting them in the taxis. And I remember the screaming for help. I couldn't do anything. Of course, I was too young, and my brother and myself, we ran away from there and left everyone on the floor. We couldn't do anything. And then growing up, I remembered what I saw, and I said to myself, one day I want to go ahead and save someone. I just want to save someone. And it was one person I wanted to save. That's it. It wasn't about saving the world, but saving one person. And then when I was 15, I saw the opportunity of going to be a volunteer in the ambulances in Jerusalem, in Magen David Adom. They had an opportunity to go be a volunteer there. They have, they're mostly employees, but they had a few volunteers in each ambulance. So I said, I'm going to be a young 15-year-old volunteer, and I'm going to go save someone. That was my dream. So here I am. I finished a course. It was a short course, and I went to volunteer. And the first week I went to volunteer, we had a lot of emergencies. No one really needed to be saved besides one woman who had a heart attack. And we came there, but it took us a long time to get to her, maybe 25 minutes to get to that location. By the time we got there, we were doing CPR. This woman did not make it. It was very hard for me to see a woman die. And she was very, she wasn't young, but she was still young enough to have a life. And that was like terrible for me. And then a week later, we had a lot of emergencies, and then we had another car accident, a really bad car accident that someone was killed. And I didn't understand why week after week we're not saving anyone. We're helping people that could wait for us, but people who cannot wait for us are not making it. And then we had an incident a year and a half after I started volunteering of a 7-year-old boy who was having lunch, and he was eating a hot dog. While he was having lunch, he choked on that hot dog, and his mother saw that happening, and she called for help immediately. Come fast, come fast. We were the only ambulance available in the city, and they send us out to that address. I mean, in Jerusalem, they had 9 ambulances operating during the whole, for the whole city. And we were the last one available for that emergency. If not, they had to call an ambulance from out of town, from Beit Shemesh or another city. And we responded. We got there 21 minutes after. It was from one side of the city to the other side. And we heard the screaming of the mother from the top of the building when we parked, and we ran upstairs. We found this kid. He was completely blue. He was already cold, and we started performing CPR, and a doctor who passed by there. He saw the ambulance parked downstairs, and he said, "I'm a doctor. I want to help." And he helped us, and he was working with us for a long time, for like 25 minutes. And after that whole time, he was trying to do everything possible to save him. But the doctor says there was nothing else we could do, and he pronounced him dead. He said, "Just bring a sheet to cover him." And that moment was the worst moment of my life. I was 16 and a half years old. I just made the calculation. It took us 21 minutes to arrive. It took the doctor 22 minutes to arrive, but he was a block away. The reason he arrived after 22 minutes is because that's only when he saw the ambulance came. And he said he'll come help because he saw an ambulance there. But if someone would have called him 21 minutes earlier, he would have been there right away within a minute. And I said, I'm a volunteer for a year and a half. I never saw one person that we brought him back to life. Let's start a response organization that will be responding to emergencies before ambulances, a pre-ambulance service. You know, ambulance was invented many years ago as a pre-hospital service. Originally, it was only a transport vehicle. Then it became a treatment vehicle, but that was a pre-hospital treatment. I said, I need to start a pre-ambulance treatment. And I got all my friends together and we all said, let's do it. The only problem was the ambulance union were not too happy about this. They didn't like the idea. They said, if someone needs an ambulance, he must get an ambulance. This was 29 years ago. 29 years ago, we were trying to explain them what this would look like.
There's politics in everything, right?
Politics and everything. Listen, it's a livelihood of people. Don't forget, it's every ambulance service. I don't know about Canada, but in America, most of the ambulance services charge for service. Israel, the ambulances charge for service. You need to pay. You get a bill. You must pay that bill. If some other organization or other people start coming before ambulances, and it's a danger to the service. So you know, it's like if you call a taxi and you say, "Hi, I need a taxi," and they said, "Okay, we're going to send you a taxi," but meanwhile, someone else with a private car will come keep you busy. They're not going to do anything like that. Here, you're talking about saving lives, but in the end of the day, you need to transport that person, and the transport costs money. So they didn't want to share the calls with us. And we were stuck. What do we do now? We had a great idea, but no, we couldn't implement it because we needed to hear if a child is choking, we needed to get that to us. So they would dispatch through a walkie-talkie. So I decided to use Israel's greatest innovation then, called chutzpah, and go ahead and create these walkie-talkie, like illegal walkie-talkies. They call scanners. They used to sell them in Radio Shack everywhere in America. And
Right.
I had some bar mitzvah money, and I sent some friend of mine who was in America, go buy me 2 scanners. And that's how we started, with 2 scanners, with some chutzpah. And people were just, we were listening in to the calls. And we heard every emergency call that happened nearby us. We knew the address. And the first emergency that I responded to was a man who was hit by a car. They said the address was Hapisgah 45. I was in Hapisgah 50. 30 seconds away. I was there. I moved everyone aside. I said, I'm an EMT. I was 16 and a half years old. I had no medical supplies on me. I had a walkie-talkie in my hand. And I saw his situation. He was bleeding everywhere, but I saw he was bleeding from his neck really bad. So I took my yarmulke off my head. I had a bigger one than it. And I used it as a tourniquet, and I just pushed it in as much as I could. And then it stopped, the bleeding stopped. And then eventually ambulance came and took him to the hospital. And then 2 days later, I get a phone call. They said, "Are you Eli Beer?" I said, "Yes." They said, "My father was treated by you on Hapisgah Street. Was that you?" I said, "Yes." He says, "My father woke up in Hadassah Hospital this morning, and he wants to thank you for saving his life." And that word, saving his life, was like, I never saved anyone. This is a year and a half. I'm a volunteer, but I never saved anyone. I was like, I started crying. I said, "I'm coming right away to visit him." He said, "Yes, come." I came, and he gave me this incredible hug. And then when he took his hands off me, he was very weak. And I saw he had a number on his hands. I just realized he had a number, like a Holocaust survivor from Auschwitz. And he said to me, he was about 70 years old. He said to me, Toda rabba she'etzalta oti. And these words that he gave me were the words that keeps me going till today.
That's an incredible story. So, so then you slowly build up a core of volunteers. How does that happen? How do you get the word out, and how do you start, and how do you raise the funds, and how do you train? And there's so much of an infrastructure that you have to build in order for this organization to be successful.
Yeah, so originally we started with nothing. We had 15 volunteers with 2 walkie-talkies. And eventually so the doctor of this man said to me, this person was on a Coumadine. If you didn't stop his bleeding, he would have been dead. But next time, don't use your yarmulke. Buy a bandage if you want to be a hero. So I had a few more shekels left, and I went ahead and I went to a place to buy medical supplies, and I bought medical supplies there, and I had my first bag, and I would carry it everywhere with me. And then I realized we need to have, if you want to have an infrastructure, you need to have a system. You need to have equipment. You need to have training. You need to have everything you need. So I started going over to my father every week. Can I have some more money? My father was the first one, and then I said, "My dad, I want to buy a motorcycle that we could start responding to emergencies and get there faster because we get stuck with the cars." We started Uber 29 years ago. It was like Uber for life saving, but on cars. But even though we had cars, we were much faster than ambulances because we had them spread everywhere.
I understand the motorcycles that you use. They're called ambucycles. This is your patent. This is your novelty, because especially those of us who know Yerushalayim know how narrow the streets are, especially when there's gridlock in the traffic. And this has really made the difference between saving lives and people dying, is that the access that you have on an ambulance, on an ambucycle.
100%. And it was so obvious to me. Look, I saw ambulances from the inside, not only from the outside. Every one of us sees an ambulance from the outside. You see them stuck in Fifth Avenue or in Madison Avenue, trying to go through traffic or in Toronto or in Israel. You see the ambulances stuck all the time. It's not like they don't want to go there. They want to get there in time, but they can't. They cannot. It's a far distance. It's too big to go through. It can't go on a sidewalk. And I used to see these pizza delivery guys in Israel. These guys were like, they want to get a big tip. The Israelis, they don't give tips if they don't get a good service. And these Israelis just finished the army. They want to go to India for a couple of months for a vacation. They want to collect some shekels before. So they go deliver pizza. And they go jump on a motorcycle with the hot pizza out of the oven. Within 3 minutes, they're in someone's house already with the pizza. They get a nice tip. I said, if these guys are getting there in 3 minutes with a motorcycle with a pizza box, why don't we do it for life saving? And everyone said to me, oh, Eli, but you need authorizations. They don't have anything like this anywhere around the world. I said, listen, if I ask for approval in Israel, I'm going to be 95 years old when we get that approval. I said, we start it. And if we get caught, we're going to ask for forgiveness, but at least we'll have proof that it works. And that's how we started. We were young. We were 17 years old, so we were all excited about doing this, and it changed the way we save lives. It literally, we were the first ones in the world to create this, the ambucycles. And it's like we have over 1,000 of them now all around Israel. And it's unbelievable to see a volunteer doesn't have to look for parking when he comes home or goes to work in the center of Jerusalem or Tel Aviv or Haifa. He parks it right in the entrance to the workplace. It doesn't take space. If some emergency comes, he doesn't have to think twice. Should I go or not go? Because then if I go, I have to find parking again. You don't have that problem. You eliminate the biggest problem, which is parking. Second problem you eliminate is the congestions. You take that motorcycle that has all the medical equipment in it, a defibrillator and all the trauma stuff, everything, even to deliver a baby is in the back there. And it's with the volunteer. He takes it to work. We choose the best volunteer. When someone donates an ambucycle to us, we say, okay, who's the best volunteer online to get it? And that volunteer gets it, and he has to take, or she has to take the ambucycle to work yeshiva, to the kollel, to university, to wherever they play golf with it. And if a call comes in, they jump on that ambucycle and they're there in 90 seconds.
What kind of vital equipment do you pack on your ambucycles? Obviously, you can't put in all of the machinery that you have on an ambulance. So what are the kinds of things that your ambucycles are equipped with?
So you'll be surprised. We have everything an ambulance has besides for a stretcher. We have a big oxygen tank that we managed to put in. We build special, it took us years to design. We are like, everything by us is made exactly for all the medical supplies. You could think medications, trauma equipment, delivering babies, resuscitation people, everything's there. And also a defibrillator. We have a small defibrillator inside where they could just pull it out and save someone with it. So they have a whole ambulance there besides for the stretcher. The ambulance will come eventually. And when the ambulance comes, they could continue working on someone who's alive, someone who doesn't have brain damage, and take that person to the hospital. So the beginning of the process of life-saving does not start with an ambulance, which it used to. It starts with a volunteer who's a neighbor of that person or someone's passing by.
Have any other countries learned from your system and implemented ambucycles?
Not enough. We have probably 10 cities around the world who implemented this, but it's not enough. It's not something that we have enough of it.
All right. So, the next thing that I wanted to speak with you about is, so you've got 1,000 of these responders on ambucycles around the country. You're actively saving lives. Tell us what has been going on since COVID started and how you've changed your mode of business to respond to what's going on today.
So when I was in America, when I got sick, we were responding to emergencies on a regular base, like about 1,500, 1,700 a day in average. Everything was normal. And then when I got sick, everything changed. Also in Israel, people were okay, this could happen to anyone. So people started davening for me and everything. And then I said to my Hatzalah volunteers, I begged everyone during the time I was sick. I believe in davening. It's a very important tool, but I also believe in chesed. I said, please take upon Hatzalah. I said to my guys, I couldn't breathe. I said, please take one chesed extra. We like to save people in heart attacks and strokes. It's a lot of excitement, but a lot of things are not so exciting, like helping elderly people. Helping elderly people is the hardest you could do. And I said, so many of them are stuck at home. And I said, do something you could do. And then when I was in a coma, United Hatzalah took upon itself to send out thousands of volunteers to help out people who were locked down, who couldn't go shopping, who needed medicines, who needed oxygen, who needed basic things, and they couldn't get it. So we were doing shopping for these people. We sent volunteers of Hatzalah to go help people shop for food and get stuff for Pesach. And then when I woke up, I didn't even know how big this was. When I woke up, I get a phone call from Eli Polak, who's the head of Hatzalah in Israel. And he says to me, Eli, he's the one running the whole operations there now. He's like an incredible guy. I brought him in when he was a young kid. Now he's a CEO now. We have a good team of people working there. And he says to me, Eli, we need you back. I said, I'm done. I can't. I'm depressed. I was really depressed. He says, you don't know what's going on with the chesed United Hatzalah is doing. Besides from regular emergencies, we had to equip everyone with PPE equipment, protection gear. We had to buy a lot of very expensive stuff. But he said, we took upon ourselves, like you asked, to do chesed. I said, give me one story. Give me one story, I said. So he says to me, 5 minutes before Pesach, a woman, 90-year-old woman, calls up and she says, I need candles for Chag. I need candles for the Chag. And I don't have candles at home. Could someone bring over to my house candles? And the volunteers, they right away, the dispatch says, do you need anything else, like food or anything? They said, no, only candles. Just bring me candles. Immediately I need it. So a 90-year-old lady asked for candles. They send out a call. The first volunteer who grabbed the mitzvah was a guy, an Arab volunteer by the name of Ibrahim Ayuti. And he lives in Jaffa, which is right next to Bat Yam, where this woman lives. And he grabbed the mitzvah and he went with an ambucycle and he went to buy candles. And then he went to buy flowers for her. And he comes to her house. He knocks on the top floor of a building. This lady opens the door. She sees him with the orange vest. And she starts crying. She says, Evetali nerot, did you bring me candles? He says, yes, I brought you nerot. And he gives her the flowers. She was crying. She said, you saved my life. You saved my life. You saved my life. He said, wait, you saved your life. He was like, what saved your life? And then he sees that she's a Holocaust survivor. He sees the stamp, the stamp of a Holocaust survivor on the hand. And he's an Arab. Ibrahim's an Arab. He's Muslim. We have in Hatzalah, it's called United Hatzalah because we have Jews and Arabs working together in Israel and Christians, of course. And he says to this woman, could I sit with you for a little? I want to keep you company. She says, no, go home to spend time with your family for Pesach. He said, no, I'm not doing Pesach. I'm not Jewish. I'm Muslim. She looks at him surprised. He says, no, not everyone in Hatzalah, in United Hatzalah is Jewish. I'm not Jewish, but I came to help you. I want to spend some time with you. So he saw she's lonely, of course. She was alone in her house. He sits with her for 2.5 hours. And she starts talking to him about, she lit the candles. She lit like 15 candles for all her members of her family who were murdered by the Nazis. She had children before. She had, she grew up, or she had brothers and sisters, whatever, the whole family. So he asked her, why did you say that I saved your life? What did I save your life? I just gave you the candles. She said, when I was a young kid in the concentration camps, I never missed one Shabbat or one Chag of lighting a candle. Every single wick I lit, but I didn't have candles. So I used to take a piece of paper or wood, and I used to light that as a candle, even for a few minutes till it burns out. I never missed one Shabbat my whole life, even during the concentration camps. I said to myself today, when I realized I don't have candles for the Chag, if I have to go back to lighting a piece of paper or wood for Pesach now here in Israel, this is my last day of my life. I will die from agony. But you came with the candles and you gave me the candles. You saved my life.
So I'm getting chills from hearing that story, especially because the person who relates that story is not even a member of the Jewish people. Can you talk about this idea of incorporating the Arab population, both the Muslim and the Christian, and I assume you have Druze as well, as part of United Hatzalah, and how this has this had any kind of transformative effect on the general population and how they view their neighbors, and has this extended beyond United Hatzalah in any way?
So first of all, Rabbi, I will tell you, and you'll agree with me, it's harder to connect the Jews and the Jews than the Jews and the Druze. It was a very, very hard job to create Hatzalah before it was United Hatzalah as one group with Sephardim and Ashkenazim and Dati Leumi and Haredi and ultra Haredi and very Zionistic Dati and Chilonim, to put them all together. We were able to do that, the religious and secular, and every type in between. The two Vishnitz, the two Babov, the two Satmar, the two Dati Leumi, the two Panovich, everyone in one organization. And then I got a phone call from a guy, his name was Mohammed, he's and Murad, two Arabs. They want to meet me. I said, what is it about a meeting? What do you want to meet about? They said, we want to meet you about to talk about Hatzalah. They couldn't pronounce Hatzalah correctly. I said, what do you mean Hatzalah? You mean Hezbollah? So they said, no, Hatzalah. I said, okay, what do you want to talk? He said, let's meet in person. I said, okay. They said, you created this incredible system. And this Muhammad says, this guy, Muhammad Asli, he says, my father had collapsed at home. He was 52 years old. In front of the whole family, we didn't know what to do. We called for an ambulance in Yerushalayim, East Yerushalayim. It took almost an hour for an ambulance to arrive. And my father died in front of our eyes. We didn't know what to do. And I promised myself, I want to learn how to save lives and save other people, no matter who they are. I want to join your organization. I know you don't have Jews, but I want to be there. I'm going to save Jews and non-Jews. And I had chills because, you know what? When I created this, it wasn't about saving Jews. I live in Israel. Of course, majority of the people are Jewish, but it was about saving everyone. We're Jewish. We have the value of Hatzalat Nefashot for everyone. Hashem's creatures. So I said to him, Muhammad, I'll join you in only in one condition. I see the fire in your eyes that you want to save people, like the ish, the fire. I said, I need another 25 people like you. Get me 25 people like you. We're going to start a course of volunteers. It takes 6 months. We train you. Then it'll give you a couple more months to do on ambulance shifts and stuff till you're really professional. And we're going to start a group of Arab volunteers. And he said, okay. And like a month later, he had 25 people. We joined them in. They were amazing. Until today, today in United Hatzalah, we have 6,500 volunteers. Almost 600 of them are Arabs.
So, and is there any kind of, are you detecting any kind of a conflict or hostility between the different members of your volunteer corps? Everyone gets along?
I think if they ever want to check to see what's the best way to make real, I don't call it peace because we're not a peace organization, we're a life-saving organization, but how do you really bring people to respect each other a lot? How do you do that? Show them United Hatzalah. When you have a mission like saving lives of my children, and he has a mission of saving lives of his children, and he knows in order to save his children, he needs to save my children, because that's the only way we could connect together and get to a 90-second response, which is our goal. You have to know how to respect each other, and really the amount of respect, the volunteers respect. I never had a situation, and I have volunteers who are Narei Gvoot, they call the ones who are on the settlements, on the mountains, on the building settlements, illegal settlements that they build, they call Narei Gvoot, not the legal ones that are in Psagot, which is 100% legitimate and everything. I'm talking about the ones in the between of nowhere. And they join United Hatzalah, and then they meet our volunteers who are in United Hatzalah, and I see how they realize that, you know what, we have a conflict. We have a conflict over land, over religion, or whatever it is. But one thing we don't have a conflict on, that if I'm choking, you save me. And if you're choking, I'm saving you. And we're protecting each other. Because we could disagree on a lot of things, but life is more important than any of these things. And I see that all the time, and we have hundreds and hundreds of stories of Arabs and Jews who, we just had an Arab woman of United Hatzalah. She's a volunteer. Her house burned down, and her children were there while she was there, and it was in the middle of the night, and terrible tragedy. She burned like 70% of her body, and her children were saved by Hatzalah volunteers, Jewish ones, who ran into their home while the house was on fire and rescued her children and her. But she was really in a bad situation. Thank God she's recovering. But United Hatzalah volunteers, Hasidim, firm volunteers, said we have to help this woman. She's an Arab. She's not part of their Hasidus. She's a Muslim Arab. But they said we have to do something. Our whole house was burnt down. They were collecting money in between themselves, the Jewish guys. And they raised money to give this woman in her house to help her out a little, because she went through this big tragedy. And I said, if they're doing this, I'll join in and get other people to join in to help this woman. And I said, this is something you'll never see in Israel if it's not for United Hatzalah.
It's such an important message. It's not only that you won't see it in Israel, but it's so hard to get Jews and Muslims together in general. There's still a lot of mistrust. But I guess when you work up close with an organization like this, you see we're all created b'tselem Elokim. We're all created in God's image, and we all have the same red blood under our skin. We're all the same people. I want to introduce Rachel Har, who's a local to the GTA. She's the new director of the Canadian branch of United Hatzalah. Rachel, welcome, and just maybe introduce yourself and let us know what you're up to here in Canada.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you so much. Great questions. And Ellie, thank you also. So yeah, I just joined United Hatzalah back in November, and I am just beyond thrilled to be part of this incredible life-saving organization. I invite anyone that is interested in learning a little more about us. I'll put in the chat our website. I'll put my email as well. And we're really eager to continue to build out awareness and outreach for United Hatzalah to let people know about some of the incredible work that we do. We're going to continue to build out virtual events at this time right now, given COVID, and to really help put us on the map here in Toronto, or continue to do that, and across Canada as well. And the only thing that I would love Ellie to kind of elaborate a little more is, Israel's been in the news so much lately with some of the great work that they've been doing with administering the vaccine, and United Hatzalah has actively been doing that. So maybe our listeners would really like to learn a little more about that as well.
Yes, please.
Yeah, so Rachel, first of all, welcome. I was so excited when you joined, because when I got sick, I realized I was praying to Hashem that Hatzalah should not get offended. If Chas v'Shalom I don't survive, what will be, how much, because I run around the world raising the funds for United Hatzalah, speaking. I'm now in Miami. I just spoke in Shabbat in a couple of shuls, and people listen. One guy, right after davening, he said to me, Eli, I want to donate, actually a Canadian. He came over to me and says, he's from Montreal. He says, I want to donate an ambicycle to you, one of these motorcycles. And it's amazing. I have to travel for doing that. If not, people will not know. And I said, if I don't survive, maybe this organization is not going to survive. And thank God, more people joined in. This is all for Israel. They have Hatzalah, local Hatzalah, of course, so we're doing a great job in Toronto. But they're for Toronto. We are Israel, United Hatzalah of Israel. So we needed a representative running the show there and getting more people to get involved. And I'm happy Rachel joined. But that allows us, that enables United Hatzalah to continue not only saving lives, we go out to almost 2,000 emergencies now every day, but we said what else we could help. Volunteers are amazing. The more work you give them, the more they want to get involved, more and more and more, and forever. They're not 1 year, this is for 20, 30 years. So we started in the beginning of this whole pandemic, as I told you, the Chesed missions to help people who need it. Then the government needed help with COVID testing. They don't have enough people for COVID testing. So we send out a lot of EMTs to help out with COVID testing. It was just too much. We had a good few months in the beginning. The summer, everything looked so beautiful in Israel. Only like 200-300 people a day were getting sick, and all of a sudden it started rising and rising and rising. And the situation went out of hand. And then now, just 3 months ago, Israel was the first one in the world, and I'm very proud of Israel for doing this, getting everyone a vaccine. And now they're holding and giving people, younger ages already, 35 and up now, and they need help because they started to do it in big stadiums, in youth stadiums, just to secure. Israel is in a very big problem, and a lot of people are dying. We had 4,500 people die already from COVID. 4,500, a lot of young people. We have now 15 pregnant women who had to have C-sections. They're on ventilators now, on ventilators. So they asked us to go ahead and help with the vaccines. So we send out volunteers to help. 450 volunteers are giving out vaccines. And you're talking about 60,000 vaccines a day that we're giving. And it's just helping getting other people. But we realized that the last problem we had is all the people who could come get the vaccine is fine. What about the ones who can't come, who are in their homes in beds? They're in wheelchairs. They're in machines. They have machines connected to them. They want to see their grandchildren. They can't see their grandchildren. So we volunteered around the country now to take them to get vaccines. Last week, I gave vaccines to people, Holocaust survivors, that we brought over with ambulances. We have ambulances. We do it for free. We take the person from his house with an ambulance back home. And we just took a person 104 years old He's a Holocaust survivor, 104 years old, in Ramat Gan. He didn't go out of his house for 11 months. We took him in an ambulance. His head is 100% perfect. We took him to get the vaccine, and then they said to him, "So what would you like to do after this?" He said, I want to see the beach. I want to see the beach. I didn't see the beach for a long time up Tel Aviv, the ocean. They took him in an ambulance to see the ocean, and then they took him back home. He had the best day in a year, or more than a year. And in 3 weeks, they're going to come pick him up again and take him again to get the vaccine. And the beautiful part about this guy, he was very, very angry at Hashem after the Holocaust, this guy. He lost his family there. And part of the volunteers who came to pick him up were religious volunteers, guys with kippah. And I want to tell you something. I heard it from the volunteers. This person, his life changed because he had so much hatred towards religious people for so many years. And this last year, all he sees in the news, all the troubles and politics going on in Israel. And all of a sudden, he sees volunteers with a kippah come to take him. And it's such a kiddush Hashem. He told one of the volunteers, I didn't wear tefillin for over 75 years. I would like to, you have tefillin, I would like to put it on. It's not our job. We're not Chabad. We don't do that. But the volunteer said, you know what, if that's what you want, I'll put it on. And it was such a beautiful thing to see.
I'm sorry, we're having some technical difficulties. I apologize if anyone's not able to hear what's going on.
Do you hear me now? Hello? Hello?
Yeah, hi.
I can hear you.
Okay, I'm
Can
sorry.
hear you.
Yes, I can hear you. Yes.
Okay, I lost you for a second. Anyway,
I think it's on Rabbi Karapkin.
Yeah, I heard you. I'm sorry. So I'm just saying that we're busy taking people to get the vaccines and just doing a Kiddush Hashem, helping people.
I'm sorry for the technical difficulties, my friends. It must be my computer, but I'm having.
I can hear you. Ellie, I can hear you as well. And I'm seeing from the chat, it sounds like people are able to hear it as well.
Okay, so maybe I can ask Jeffrey to ask his question.
Sure. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good morning, Rachel. Thank you for organizing this. Ellie, it's a pleasure to make your acquaintance online. One day it should be in person. Just I could ask a lot of things, but I'm gonna ask one thing. I was telling Rachel that I'm one of the few people up here in Toronto that's involved with Shalom Hartman Institute, and my son is actually based in Ofra, and so he's Jewish community surrounded by Muslim communities. Curious how you operate in an environment like that, not just with the Jewish communities, but with the neighboring communities.
So we have volunteers in Ofra, but I'll tell you, the neighbors, the Arab communities near Ofra are not really part of the Israeli Arabs. They are called, they have, politically they're called other names like Palestinian Authority or I think it's called a C or something like that. So we don't have volunteers in Arab communities that are not Israel, that are not under Israel's law. So we have Arabs all over the country in East Jerusalem, which is Yerushalayim, our city, United Yerushalayim, where we have 900,000 people living there, 200,000 or a little more than 200,000 are Arabs. We have Arab volunteers up north and down south in Israel, but next to Ofra we don't have, because it's just a very, very complicated and very dangerous situation now until they don't really make it. But we work with the Red Crescent every time they have an emergency on the roads or something and the Red Crescent shows up. We work in respect to each other, but we don't have Arab volunteers or Palestinian volunteers there.
Thank you.
All right. I want to thank you so much, Eli, for your generous giving us of your time and of your wisdom. And I apologize for these last minute technical difficulties that apparently I'm having on my computer. But I want to wish you tremendous Hatzalah. If anyone would like to learn more about United Hatzalah, the website that Rachel just posted is israelrescue.org. That's Israel Rescue, all one word, .org. We wish you tremendous continued Hatzlacha. And Rachel, thank you for being now in our community. And Godspeed. Be Matzliach, and may United Hatzalah save many, many more lives. Thank you so much,
Rabbi.
Rabbi.
And I really hope to come visit in person in the Bayit, B'ezrat Hashem, to be there in person, and see you all in Israel one day soon, very soon. Come to visit in Israel.
I just want to leave you. Let me leave you with one last idea, and that is the last mission that we did for the Bayit to Israel. We went to the Gaza border, and we provided special vests for the guys riding motorcycles. I'm not sure if they're officially part of United Hatzalah or whether it's some other kind of organization, but we're definitely, as a community, very interested in keeping people safe and helping save lives in Israel. So this is a message that really spoke to all of us today. Thank you.
Thank you. And I hope to see you with our volunteers in Israel. And I thank you for everything you do. And any support you could give us before you come and when you come will be very helpful. And thank you so much. Keep safe and keep warm in Toronto.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And
thank you, Rabbi. Thank you to the synagogue and for everyone joining, for being part of this.
It's our pleasure, and have a wonderful day and a Shavua Tov, everybody.
Shavua Tov. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Estaba bien.
Ya se quitó, algunos están ahí.
Daca. Lo quitaré, Daca. Estaba muy bien eso. Ahora sabemos que algunos sitios en Israel tienen moros también.
Ah, tienen moro seco.
Yeah. Sí. Se está quitando la gente.
Ya la va y termina tu trabajo.
Ya.
Mañana hay que hacer. Ya terminaron.
Ya está. Oh, wow.
Se quedan ahí.
No,
Más de 100.
maybe.
Escuchando.